Okay, hi everyone, this is SmithyQ, smithyq.com, and I'm back with a video analysis. Um, this one's going to be probably a bit shorter, a bit different than my regular ones. I apologize, I've been trying to record one all weekend, and it's just every take was terrible, and it wasn't working. So I'm going to regroup, I'm just going to talk about a couple of my games quickly, and then we're going to hopefully go back to regular analysis next week. We'll see. What happened though is I was playing some blitz games this weekend, and for a lack of a better term, they got very, very messy. And there are two real ways of playing chess or approaching chess when you're playing. And to continue the analogy, there's the clean way, the logical, generally positional, strategic, very, very calm, deliberate. Right? These types of words. We know what we're talking about there. When we look at, the games of Steinitz or Tarrasch or Karpov, they have this logical, clean-like demeanor to them. And then the alternative would be the very, very messy games. The games where you have no idea what the heck is going on. It's just wild, it's crazy, and the game can turn at a moment's notice. Generally, this involves a lot of tactics and sacrifices, but it doesn't have to. Generally, there's just a huge imbalance. Again, if you want, you can think, Tau, Bronstein, these types of players, Kasparov to a certain extent, really excelled in messy positions. I'm very much not a messy player. I'm very, very calm, cool, deliberate. And yet, a couple of games really pushed me into this direction. I played this opponent here. This is just a lead up to the main game we're going to look at. We played a series of games, and I noticed that this opponent, Balls, Balsss, really nice guy, fantastic. He strove to create imbalances in every single game, and it was absolutely fascinating. In this game, for instance, here, he ended up playing rook takes c7. I put it on the board, so that way he could then take with a knight. And so, in exchange, right, so it's an imbalance. He's given up the exchange, but he's picked up a pawn, and this diagonal, this bishop is now increased in power, because again, by taking the dark square bishop, right? I don't have a dark square bishop to oppose against that one. And then after this, this bishop can potentially be very, very strong. And then later in the game, the imbalance is continued. We see that knight is very strong. And then when he had an opportunity, he sacrificed on f6. Again, with the idea of increasing the power of this bishop. He ended up playing queen a1, and he's trying to get some danger. It didn't work in this game. I was able to do my own attack quite quickly, and he didn't have any time to do his. But just the idea of it, like, it was a completely different way of playing chess than what I'm used to, and it was very, very enjoyable, actually. And that leads to the main game. So this is just sort of a pretext of where this is coming from. Because again, if you've seen my games, and the way I explain them, it's generally this calm, positional, strategic. This game is not that. So I was black again, and my opponent played f4. And now the well-known equalizer against this is d5, and then take knight f6. I mean, you could take with the queen, I guess, but after knight c3, it's kind of this strange version of the Scandinavian, where f4 and c5 have played, and that's probably better for white, because white's going to want to plop a knight here, and also there's less control over these two squares. For instance, bishop b5, knight d5, and it's just more comfortable for white. By playing knight f6, if white allows us to, we're going to take with the knight, and then we've got a better version of the knight f6 Scandinavian. The problem with this, so to speak, is that it's a gambit. Because after bishop b5 check, however we block, white can take and then play c4, or for instance, we block the bishop, he might be able to retreat with the bishop, because then our queen no longer attacks the pawn. I'll put that on the board, actually. He could do something like this, and where the pawn is fully protected. So in the game, I played bishop d7, and then after take, c4. And then the pawn, and then it's here where I suddenly realized that I missed the, I messed up. Normally, in the what's called the Moscow variation, the bishop b5 check line. Blocking the bishop is considered the most solid approach, because after take, you can take with the knight or the queen. I usually take with the knight. And it's simply generally it's a pretty calm position for black. There's not a lot of worry here. However, this isn't that variation. This is the f4 variation. I actually don't know what it's called. And by blocking with the bishop, take, it's now really hard to break free because, again, typically what we want to do is we want to play e6, and then we recapture with the bishop. And so had I done this, and let's say we keep going, something like this, right? Whoops. The idea is typically to play e6, then after take, black has really good compensation. There are two very weak squares in here for pieces. We can imagine a knight wants to jump in here. If a knight can get there, that'd be amazing. But the white is generally forced to play d3, and this his center. He's got a very, I guess this square isn't as weak, but this square is very weak. And black generally gets very good play here. We're going to put both our, we're going to play generally bishop e7, we're going to castle, we're going to put our rooks on the files, and we're just going to crush through. White has no attack, and history has shown that black has great compensation throughout these positions. That's the idea. By blocking with the bishop, take. Now if I play e6, I have no bishop to recapture. And so after c4, I'm like, crap, what do I do? Because this pawn is just, it's a huge bone in my throat. What do I do? And so then I basically went insane a little bit. I made the game very messy. Because if I don't make the game messy, he's simply up a pawn with a great position. That's no good. So I played e6. He played queen e2, which is probably a clever move. I moved my knight away. He took. And then I played bishop to d6. With the idea of take. I'm developing my king. But look at this. Look at this position all of a sudden. White has one piece developed. It's his queen. And it's on the open e-file. The rook can slide over and pin, and then he's going to be in huge trouble. He has no pieces developed. Okay, he can develop the knight pretty quickly. I guess he can develop this knight. It's going to be harder to develop this bishop. Where do you go? Do you play d3? Well, the bishop isn't very good on this diagonal. Do you play b3? That might be a good idea, but then my knight will have home on e4, and the f4 pawn could be weak. It's very difficult to play white here. That is, maybe that's not completely true because the computer says, you know, white has a very large advantage. And he probably does. But in a blitz game, in a practical game, it's much easier for white to make mistakes. And we can see this actually throughout the rest of the game, is that white made the mistakes, essentially. And the reason for this is that I created a position that was wild, it was crazy, and basically whoever made the last mistake would have lost. And this is what happened. He plays knight f3, which is probably the best move. Well, the computer doesn't like it. Knight f3 makes a lot of sense just because if I were to now play rook to e8, he can block with the knight, and it's check, and everything is fine. The computer, for the record, says that queen f3 is nice. But then you have to take into consideration things like rook to e1 check. How does he block it with the knight? Maybe we can take the pawn. And again, it's much easier for white to make mistakes here. Now, the computer can play perfectly. That's great. The computer would have made the mistake at the beginning. But like the real lesson, you know, that I took from the game is like, you want to create positions where your opponent can make mistakes. Let's back up for a second, actually. If we look at the what the computer recommended, instead of my knight b6 and whatever, it recommended that I would have played queen e7 here. Then after take, and we keep going from here. But this is a miserable position. White is simply up a solid pawn. What the hell is black going to do? Black has no counterplay. I got my... there's nothing here. My opponent is 100 rating points higher than me. He's just going to run me over. Again, in a practical game. Maybe the computer can hold this, but this is absolutely terrible. Instead, by inviting complications, maybe I lose anyway, but I give myself a chance. And plus, it's just incredibly fun to develop your king on move 9 on the open f-file. As it was, after knight f3, I was able to take the pawn. Now, he can't play knight e4. I'll simply take it and then pin him. Then after castle, rook e8, he moves his queen. I take on c4, and all of a sudden material is equal. And so, and this is a completely novel position. This is just, there's no theory to back up on. There's probably not even any similar positions to this. This is just completely crazy. And the better player is going to win. And that's a really satisfying feeling. Right? It's not, oh, my opponent played a trap, and he won because of that. Right? Or, a silly tactic, an oversight. No, it's simply, it's a crazy position, and the better player is going to win. And then, the game, it's kind of interesting. So he plays knight c3, develops a piece. I play queen d3, which the computer doesn't like. I'd like knight e5 right away. But the idea of this is I want to prevent him from bringing this piece into the game. Like, maybe something, d3 with a discover attack on my bishop. Maybe he could sacrifice a pawn this way, opening up lines for his rooks. By stopping that, I'm keeping this bishop out of the game. And then, white kind of goes crazy here. He takes on c5, and then after I bring my rook over, he takes on a7 as well. And so, white wins back his 2 pawns, as the computer shows that this is a completely terrible idea, objectively. Though I don't follow up correctly. You can see with my next move, the computer says this is completely equal again. But you can kind of sense, though, in such crazy positions, right? We got kings developed, pawns were sacrificed, and then won back. Material is less important. What is important are pieces, activity, and king safety. Here, white spends, it ends up being, what, 3 tempi. He takes this pawn, then he takes this pawn, then he's going to have to move his queen again, all the way back. He doesn't have to, but he's got to bring the queen back into play. So he spent 3 tempi just to win a couple pawns, when black is now fully active and white is still playing without a couple pieces. Right? Another way of looking at it is white is up 2 pawns, but the computer says it's not even a pawn advantage. That is the power of the activity. And then what happened, I was able to essentially set a trap. And he fell for it, and I was able to win the game. He kicked my knight back. He took my knight. He attacked my rook. Again, he's trying to get developed. And we can see how this came about, right? These pieces aren't in the play, so he's so incredibly focused on how does he bring these pieces in. So he plays b3, he's able to exchange a piece, he plays bishop a3, now he can move his rook over, everything looks happy, except bishop d4 pins his queen. I win the queen, and I'm going to win the game. It goes on for quite a bit, actually. I do not make this easy, and I essentially win on time. Look at this final position. Even the final position is kind of wild, actually, because he's got 4 pawns. I have 1. He has the rook for the queen. When you look at it up, I mean, that's practically material as even. And I was just fortunate that he ran out of time, essentially. Because that would be a very hard endgame to convert. But what is the moral of the story? Is there one? Part of it is I just wanted to share this position, or this idea, right? Is, again, best play after queen e2 is to play queen e7 and get this horrible position where you're begging for a draw. But I could make it messy instead. So I'm sacrificing material, and I'm able to create a position where 3 moves later, 1, 2, 3, all of a sudden white has no advantage at all. In fact, after this move, apparently black is in the driver's seat. right? And so this is a big part of practical chess. Much of my videos and like the way I think about chess is essentially theoretical, like logical, like what is the truth behind chess, and that's important. And a lot of that is through my years of correspondence chess, where the truth of the position really, really matters. But in a practical game where you have limited time to think, especially in a blitz game, there's huge value in being able to create messy positions. I'm not saying do this all the time, though. I think I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do a little experiment. I think I'm gonna try and play the most aggressive, messy chess I can. Just see how that works for me, and we'll see how different that is from my normal results. Yeah, but I think if you can only play messy chess, or you could only play logical, calm chess, I think there's a really important part that you're missing. And this is perhaps my first introduction in a long time into this type of chess. So hopefully we'll see, maybe, no promises, we'll see more coming forward. So that's it for now. Hopefully you found that interesting or useful in some ways. Again, I apologize. It's been a tough bit for me with chess. Anyway, so hopefully back to the regular schedule next week. I'm going to have a blog article coming up, so you can check that out, smithyq.com. Otherwise, that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.